Collins driving, almost lost the handle. Chalmers for the tie. Got it in 10 seconds. Unbelievable.
He throws. Got Meyer. Touchdown. Gary Meyer.
And he used to tell me, those places are great, but there's no place like Kansas.
All right, we're back. AB, just me and AB tonight. We threw in the intro, which I don't know. Let's be quiet. Let's not tell YouTube. I don't know if they're going to get mad, if they're going to we'll see what happens. If this video gets taken down, so be it. But we figured let's try and throw the old intro on there and see how it goes. So welcome back. Another episode, Ain't No Seats. We don't really know what we're going to – I feel like it's just going to be a variety of topics. Shout out Cord first today. Like and subscribe. Shout out. Yes, subscribe. We're almost to 1,000. We need to get to 1,000.
1,000's big. 1,000's big.
1,000 just looks so much better than 880 or whatever we're at right now. So yes, please subscribe, please like. Lot to talk, I guess. In a weird way, there's not a lot of super big KU news, but just a lot happening in the college basketball world, specifically coaching, potential transfers still to come because of all the coaching changes, potential hilarious coaching changes down the road based on how dominoes fall. I don't know how much we'll get into that, but I guess let's just, before we even get into anything KU related, how weird is it that John Calipari is the head coach at Arkansas?
That was shocking to see. And it is really weird, right? Guys don't just typically go from these huge jobs and then on their own decide to go. And I'm not saying Arkansas is a bad job. I think it's kind of an underrated job. But when you have a Kentucky, Duke, Kansas kind of job, it'd be like Bill Self going to Iowa State or Coach K in his prime going to NC State or something.
That's what I was going to say. What is the Big 12 equivalent to Arkansas?
Yeah, and I don't know if Iowa State's the right one, but it's maybe Baylor. I don't know. Yeah. They've had more success lately, but it's just strange. But when I saw it happen, it seemed like a win for everybody. I think a lot of people have been saying this now. Kentucky gets a fresh start, which seems like their fan base wanted, their athletic department kind of wanted. They just didn't want to fork over the money. They don't have to pay the buyout now. Cal goes somewhere where he's appreciated. Arkansas gets a big, boost and excitement and money and all this coming in. So it's who loses in this scenario? So I guess it makes sense. It was just really shocking to see because it felt like one of those dumb Twitter rumors that we see 100 of every day now. And then all of a sudden Norlander tweets it out and it's okay, now here we go. We're actually talking here.
And if Calipari had any leverage, it felt like a classic agent leaks a story to try and negotiate a new deal. But there's as we saw, Kentucky had no interest in even countering. They were just oh, sweet, we're going to get this $32 million. So, yeah, I don't know. You said there's no losers, and I agree. As of the way they sit now, there are no losers. But you know who has the best shot at being the loser in this situation? It's still Kentucky. Because if Scott Drew says no, Dan Hurley said no, Jay Wright said no, Billy Donovan's coaching the Bulls.
Said no. He basically said no.
I will say it didn't. I think Billy Donovan could have come out a little stronger.
Yeah. I think his exact quote was he was focused on this team right now and he planned on being here in the future. But he's not, as a Bulls fan that's kind of lost interest in the Bulls, especially after yesterday's failed alley-oop to themselves, which was the craziest video.
Let's spend an hour talking about that one play.
Well, then did you see the extended clip of Andre Drummond immediately getting hurt the next play on defense?
No.
It's a disaster.
But dude, when I saw that clip the first time, my initial reaction was, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen. Then I rewatch it thinking, was it 120-75 with 30 seconds on the clock? No, it was 36-27. I couldn't believe
late first quarter.
Not just the fact that two guys on your team have the thought to throw the ball off the backboard and both try to catch it. Throwing the ball off the backboard at that point in the game, as crazy as it is, but then for both of them to have that on their mind is just even funnier.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know about Billy Donovan. I think he'll say no. I don't think a guy that's made the transition to the NBA probably because he didn't love recruiting is now looking at college basketball being like, that looks better. Like it's way worse than it used to be for those guys from a recruiting standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where like I tweeted this the other day, like we are a Scott Drew no away from this becoming hilarious territory for us fans watching Kentucky, because then it becomes who? Bruce Pearl, Rick Pitino. I really don't know who Kentucky goes for after Scott Drew says no. I still think Scott Drew's going to take it, but
I do too. Has your boy been mentioned at all, Tommy?
I don't know. No, he hasn't, which is surprising. But I have seen that Arizona's had a lot of guys in the portal, which
they have
had people speculating that maybe the players since that Lloyd's. I don't know. I don't think his name's been around at all. It shocks me because I get that he hasn't won the tournament, but Bill Self really hadn't won the tournament before he got.
Well, here's the other thing about all this coaching search stuff. No one wins in the tournament consistently.
I know.
No one does. You could make that argument about every coach in America right now except for Dan Hurley.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know.
I was gonna just see like what are our thoughts on. I get the fit from like Scott Drew's kind of got that. He's from the South, obviously been down in Waco, probably politically pretty in line with a lot of those fans, probably religiously. I actually think I read that like Mitch Barnhart, their AD, like Scott Drew because they're both like I don't know, religious, the same religion. I don't know what I'm trying to Baptist. Yeah. And so like I could see that working, but yeah, the second things start to go wrong there, you're not in Baylor. You're not at Baylor anymore.
And it like his style makes sense too with recruiting like huge recruits. Scott Drew's been getting top 5 recruiting classes forever at Baylor. But it's also personality wise, kind of like you said, you kind of got to be an asshole to coach at Kentucky, right? Like you kind of got to be one that like wants the spotlight and is not afraid to step in front of the mic and like talk shit in a way, and a little bit greasy, and like maybe we're just focusing too much on Cal, but like
no, I mean
it's not just perfect. Cal, it's Pitino. It's like you just kind of have to have that really for all these big programs. Like Bill Self kind of has it every once in a while.
I think, I mean, Cal is so perfect for that job. I think Nate Oates would have fit that a little bit. I think he's pretty opinionated.
Which I'm not convinced he still isn't going to come into the running. I think if Kentucky gets desperate and they need to like make a move, they might be able to throw enough money at him because they've got all the money in the world. If they were seriously considering buying out Cal's 32, now they just don't have to worry about that ever. They can offer whatever they want to anybody.
Yeah, but they didn't buy that out. And they also, like I read the article that The Athletic put out about the final, years of Calipari at Kentucky, what went wrong. Like, obviously he was losing, but also Kentucky was just refusing to invest more into basketball resources, and he wanted it. So,
but wasn't that because Cal like very much rubbed people the wrong way?
Yeah, I
saw that response today too, and like because he kept saying that. I think he said in his Arkansas presser that he doesn't have to go out and do the NIL stuff anymore because they're taking care of it for him. But at Kentucky, he rubbed enough people the wrong way that they just kind of stopped supporting him. He had to go do it himself.
Yeah,
it's
gonna get ugly. I think like they ended kind of on good terms, but I think over time, especially with them playing each other, like it's gonna get messy. And you knew it would. Like that was the most toxic fan coach relationship that like usually you see a fan base get that toxic and then a coach just gets fired. Like that's pretty much, but they had that same toxic relationship with Cal for the final like 3-4 years of his career. Or of his time at Kentucky. So yeah, I think Scott Drew could definitely win. Or I think he probably would do pretty well, but And I think that's why he's probably thinking hard on this. Like, does he want that? It's a classic. Is the grass always greener? No.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes guys are just cut out to be Baylor's head coach. And that might just be what Scott Drew is. But he's also got to be kind of getting just like stagnant a little bit at Baylor.
Has to. Like, what can he do at Baylor now that he hasn't done yet? He's won a championship. He's got them a new arena. He's consistently good. Like, at the end of the day, it's still Baylor. I do want to ask you this in terms of coaching searches. Does this Kentucky coaching search, even though it's only 24 hours long so far, does it make the Duke, North Carolina, Villanova route a little more palatable, considering how difficult it seems to be to hire a big-name coach at these big programs?
Not if they get Scott Drew, because especially, I mean, the Villanova one is indefensible to me. But the Duke one, I kind of get it because – and Shire's been fine. The Duke is such a lame just program that you just can't have an outsider come in. So it always had to be a Duke guy that just acts cheesy, acts corny. He's that type of guy. Shire was the right fit. He'd been being molded to do that. So that one made sense. The Villanova one, to me, like, they could have gone out and got a guy like Scott Drew, I think. They had it roll. It would essentially be like if Dan Hurley made the Final Four next year and then left. And I guess it would make more sense if Villanova hired a guy that was actually on their staff at the time. But they went and hired a guy that was coaching at Fordham for a year and wasn't even good at Fordham for that 1 year. He left the program. So I don't know. But I see what you're saying. It is because it's made me sit here and think I'm nervous about a coaching search because we've texted about this in that group chat. There's just not a ton of young, big names. Like, but you're not getting a Bill Self right now. There isn't a Bill Self sitting out there. Oates is probably the closest guy, and Oates is 10 years older or whatever than what Bill was at the time. So it is scary. And man. Let's talk about, though. I want to know what happens if Scott Drew says no.
I don't know where they go, man. I really don't. I mean, like, Otzelberger was up there on the odds lists. No offense to him. I don't know about that. But I can kind of picture his beefy ass in a Kentucky polo on the sidelines, can't you? That blue would make him pop a little bit. Not saying it would be successful or not, just saying I can see him wearing their gear.
I can picture it, but no. It just, you want a guy. Now, maybe the argument is get him to be able to recruit because it's hard to recruit to Iowa State if he can get guys. But Iowa State just plays a disgusting brand of basketball. And it's the same thing I used to say about Tony Bennett. And Otzelberger's not even close to as good as what Tony Bennett was doing. It's just like, look, I get the guy can coach really well. But at Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, North Carolina, UConn, Villanova, you just got to have a better brand of basketball than that. Otzelberger fits in Iowa State. Tony Bennett fits in Virginia. Those guys do not belong at top 5 schools in the country. And so, like, if you're going young route, he makes sense. But
what about a Greg McDermott or a what's his name? Mark Pope. He played at Kentucky.
I've seen that one.
If he goes from he's been fine at BYU. Like they won at Allen. Not many teams can say that. And they were a 6 seed this year. Yeah. If that's what he's hanging his hat on to get the Kentucky job, like that kind of says all you need to know about how their coaching search is going.
I think the part that's like the thing that's scary about Scott Drew for them saying no is I think once Scott Drew says no, they're officially downgrading. Or like that, I guess I don't know where we would rank Calipari. He's a hard guy to judge because he recruits incredibly well. We just saw what he's doing with Arkansas. He's got that fan base all sorts of fired up. But he's just a terrible in-game coach these last 5, 7, 8 years. But also, Bruce Pearl is not winning in March. Bruce Pearl has a Final Four appearance that he should have lost in the first round in that same year and has basically choked every year since. So do we think Bruce Pearl's for sure a better coach than John Calipari? I'd say they're very similar.
Yeah. I don't know, man. That's kind of why I hope Scott Drew says no. I just want to see what happens. But they're gonna they're gonna offer someone a crazy deal if Drew says no, because they're just gonna be desperate, and that's what big programs do. They get desperate and they hire someone they think works. Is there even a 1% chance that Rick Pitino comes back?
I don't. If they want to hire a 71-year-old, like, go for it.
Or what about it's another old guy, Mark Few? I'm just naming guys.
I think that would be a good hire. Because the thing about Mark Few is he's only like 62, right?
Sounds right. He's been at Gonzaga for so long, dude.
But like Mark Few could get you 10 to 15 really good 10 years, really good years. And maybe that is a situation where you promote from within when he leaves. Like Pitino, I don't know who you're promoting unless you bring his son with him, who's not even a good coach either. I forgot. Yeah, Bill and Few were born on the exact same day, same exact age. So I don't know. Either way, Scott Drew says yes. We have potential for a hilarious coaching search that, old Jerome Tang will be a hot name when it comes to Baylor. And if he says no, we get to laugh at who Kentucky has to turn to. I'm seeing in the comments, Chris Beard. It would be. I think he'd be pretty damn good at Kentucky.
I think so too.
Because he's the guy.
Same time, what has he done outside of his Final Four run?
True.
That's what I'm saying is you can make this argument for every coach out there. Like, no one consistently in the tournament goes far except for Musselman, who made 3 straight Sweet 16s, 4 straight Sweet 16s before this year. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the thing that's scary. It's like I really hope over the next 7 to 10 years you start to see younger guys kind of emerge more than we have right now, because we'd be contacting the same type of guys as Kentucky. Like, we'd probably call Oates. We'd
have to call Hurley, even if he said no.
Yeah, you'd call Hurley. You're probably not calling Billy Donovan. You're probably making Jay Wright say live on the national championship pregame show that he's not coming, but you're calling. But yeah, I think after Oates, it's not a long list, and that's what's scary. So then maybe you're hiring Jeremy Case, which we're going to need to I'm going to need to see some improvement from recruiting over these next few years if you want to convince me that somebody on this staff should be the next head coach.
Is there a shot at all that they strike out on all these names and they go your path and one of the UConn assistants gets a big jump? I mean, I know that is a big jump to go from an assistant coach to a top 3 to 5 program in the country. But I mean, we're kind of running out of options here. Like,
you're talking Kentucky?
Yeah.
That would be crazy. But I'll be honest, like, I'm not saying Kentucky should go hire a UConn assistant, but I think it's bananas that somebody like Oklahoma State wasn't doing that. Or, all these jobs we've seen open, been a crazy coaching carousel or whatever, and UConn assistants aren't on the list. Instead, we just keep hiring these mid-major guys that some will work and some will fail. But it's like, my God. UConn, how do you watch the brand that UConn's playing right now? Like, they are playing the most beautiful display of college basketball that I think we've seen in a long time. So and it has to be a lot of the assistants doing that. Hurley didn't just become a genius overnight. Like, he surrounded himself with really smart people. So yeah, I mean, I love coaching searches, man.
It's the best. So what was the flight from Waco to Lexington today? Was that people from Kentucky going to Waco to talk to Scott Drew and then flying back?
Probably.
Okay, because I know there was speculation that Scott Drew was on his way to Lexington, and then he tweeted out that picture at a Waco Mexican cantina eating some lunch with a booster.
Did you see that Family Feud was on in the background, and some guy did like a deep dive on where Family Feud was being aired on cable today, and found that the episode being aired that he saw was from 2022, and the episode that was on the screen based on the answers on the screen were from 2020, which was like, I think him being like, this wasn't taken today. Scott Drew's got to be in Lexington. I don't know. I just love coaching searches bring out absolute insanity.
Oh, well, there goes Ryan. So I'm going to go solo pod for a minute. Let's see how this goes. Boy, this is going to be weird. Well, since Ryan's not here, I'll talk about the Royals because he doesn't want to give a shit about that. The Royals, folks, they are a good baseball team. They might be back. They're actually exciting. Last time I saw, they're up 7-0 and I trying to win 6 in a row. Another series win. Get out to Kauffman, man. Get out to Kauffman. I think I'm going next weekend. Grateful Dead night at the K. What more can you ask for? Cole Reagan's on the hill. Jackson Holiday up. Ryan's back now. You know, making me do a solo pod. I started talking Royals. I know you didn't want to talk about that, but yeah, we're talking some Royals, baby. But yeah, get out to the K. Show the boys some support. About to win their 6th in a row.
That was awful. I don't know what just happened.
We've gotten more comments about the Royals than anything. But yeah, what were you wrapping up on there when you?
Well, I was going to wrap up coaching talk with how Banana Land moment of the century for John Calipari to be the most talked about man in a state, and he walks down the street with his stroller and his puppy, and then doesn't want to take questions. It's like, dude, that is classic Calipari. And I honestly, now that he's gone from Kentucky, I want to say this. And I think I've said this a few times on this pod. I like John Calipari. I really do. I think he's actually a pretty, would I buy a car from him? Probably not. Would I buy a life insurance policy from him? Probably not.
No.
Because boy, he'll sell you. But he also is just kind of he seems just kind of like a fun guy, a guy that I think genuinely does care about the people he's coaching. But that was so classic Cal to be like, oh, just trying to walk my dog. But it was the most come look at me. It was fun. I thought it was hilarious. It felt like a skit from a Saturday Night Live or something.
Well, almost a bigger twist than when you mentioned the score in the Bulls game during that play the other night was that he was pushing a stroller and then the dog started running up behind him. So there was nothing in the stroller at the very end.
I guess the dog maybe just doesn't have enough gas left in the tank for the whole walk.
Yeah, it's a little
Calipari. He was walking until somebody stopped him to try and get a comment. Yeah. That dog was going to have to go 10 miles if nobody was there to stop him. I just want to comment on this. Somebody asked Mark Mitchell to Kansas. I will pass so hard. I don't know if that's how you feel. I saw some comments on that. To me, he's just worse KJ Adams.
I saw K-State fans wanted him.
Yeah,
which makes some sense.
He'd be a good pickup. And probably would be a good pickup for Kansas in other years. I just don't think it makes any sense for this roster. I know he's a Kansas kid, but he's also a Kansas kid that chose to play at Duke. So we'll see ya, Mark Mitchell. Let's see. Okay, what else did we have on the list? I know I wanted to talk about
whatever you got, babe. I mean, whatever you got. It's a freestyle, babe.
What I wanted to talk about was the disrespect that 2008 Kansas gets when it comes to people talking about the best teams in college basketball history, or really not history. Let's say people keep saying the last 20 years, and you see the similar. You see the 2024 UConns. You see 09 UNC, 05 UNC, 2018 Villanova.
2021 Baylor, which threw me for a loop. KU smoked that team.
Yeah.
KU team's not good.
Yeah. 2021 Baylor, all these teams, and you keep reading the list, you're like, wait a second. You don't have 2008 Kansas on this list. And let me remind you, and I think you've pointed this out many a times on this pod, AB. I think the Kansas team, as of now, is this right? is the second highest rated Ken Palm team ever behind now 2024 UConn.
Fourth highest, but second highest rated champion.
Oh, yes, because
so 2015 Kentucky would rank higher. I think they were the best. And then 2021 Gonzaga as well.
This is also not true. KU led by 5 at the half in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Did Memphis run away a little bit from the 7-minute mark to the 2-minute mark or whatever it was? 3-minute mark, yes, but KU then absolutely dominated them from there on out.
Let's also not forget that Memphis team was stacked too. They had a future NBA MVP who, before he got hurt, was tracking to be truly historically good. And then, not to mention, a separate guy on the team that was a first-team All-American. Like, that team was really damn good.
Yeah.
And that's the other part that makes me mad is, like, not only do they rank well analytically, and obviously we're biased here, but, like, they won the only Final Four that had all 1 seeds.
Yeah.
And, like, it just makes me a little mad.
Dude,
really does.
So, like, the original tweet I saw was, like, best teams I've ever seen in my life. 18 Nova. 09 UNC, 2024 UConn, 07 Florida, 05 UNC. And so I originally quote tweeted it and was like, 2008 Kansas gets so much disrespect because, and I'm sorry if you just said this, I was trying to find this tweet, because they routed North Carolina, who won the national championship the next year.
Yep.
Florida, 07, the team that eventually won a national title, the 08 Kansas Jayhawks, as a year younger, beat 07 Florida on a neutral floor. And by the way, you mentioned some of these, but the more I started thinking about this, I'm laying in bed last night, getting triggered. And I think about the fact that 08, their route to the Final Four. Now, at the time, it didn't feel this absurd. But if you just look at it on paper, they went through 4 Hall of Fame coaches, Lon Kruger, Jay Wright, who is elite, Roy Williams, a top 3 to 5 coach of all time, and John Calipari, who is a Hall of Famer. They went through 2 NBA MVPs, Steph Curry, Derrick Rose. Now, Derrick Rose, we don't need to get into how that was the most BS MVP of all time. It should have been LeBron, but we're not going to start that debate today.
Don't get me fired up, Ryan.
And then, like you said, the only one to win the Final Four against all 1 seeds. So, and by the way, last thing, I didn't have time to include this. Yeah,
you are the meme of like, is he texting someone else? Is he thinking of other girls? No, I'm thinking about mid to late 2000s basketball, and I don't blame you because who doesn't?
Dude, B-Turn had an all-time text to me the other night, and I think he ended up saying it the Ain't No Seats group chat too. But we were talking about how KU's 4-10 in national title games and UConn 6-0.
Yeah.
And he was like, dude, like he started breaking down the loss to UNC with Wilt. He was like, how do you lose with Wilt? He's like, I just don't understand. Like literally texting me at like midnight being like, how do you lose that game with Wilt? This game was almost it was like 80 years ago at this point. Am I way wrong on that? 1950.
You're not that far off.
That's crazy. But
it's like 70, 60, 67 years ago.
So, I definitely do think about those things a lot. And so I just wanted to get that out there. 2008 Kansas. You don't have to say they're the best. I'd probably say they're not. But they're a top 3 to 5 team of the last 20 years.
Yeah.
No debate.
The craziest thing, too, they have a moment that everyone remembers. Like, you think back to some of these other teams, and maybe that's why people think they're better, is because they were just more dominant during their runs. But it's like one of the most famous memories in the last 30 years of college basketball. And I don't think that's just a KU take, because every time you watch any sort of March Madness intro to a broadcast or to the selection show or whatever, the Chalmers shot is either leading into that or it's posted in the background behind your boy on the CBS selection show. Like it's just, I don't know, man. It's weird.
Which, like, I think that does kind of hurt us because it almost makes it feel like we were this pesky underdog that had this miracle comeback. But we did have an incredible comeback. But I think that, but to me, what gets not talked about enough is what we did I mean, KU fans talk about it all the time, but what we did to 2008 North Carolina in that Final Four game, the same team that went on to dominate the NCAA tournament the next year, should be enough for people to be like, yeah, that team was as real as it gets. So, yeah, just had to get that rant off. I just saw something in the comments that made me oh, yeah. I mean, Wilt, not a 3, no 3 in the key rule. At what point do we need to question Fog Allen for losing that game?
Well, there also wasn't a shot clock, and the final score was like 53-52 and 3 overtimes. So now I haven't gone back and watched the tape, but I have a general idea of what North Carolina was doing in those overtimes.
I just love it. We should like start a series where we do a podcast live reacting to an old like KU loss, like reacting like we actually would. Like imagine this pod, not to bring it up. Actually, I'm going to bring it up. And I know we have a rule to not bring this up anymore, but it's the off season. Imagine this podcast live after the Oregon game.
Well, I have beef with you guys for this.
Dude,
because for years, when I would talk about depressing losses for KU, I would get shunned on this podcast. I would get yelled at by you guys. I would be told not to talk about this. I would be told, what are we doing bringing this up? And I checked my phone Saturday night, and it's texts and it's tweets and it's multiple group chats of you and Braden just ranting and raving about the 2017 Oregon game.
Dude,
what are we doing?
I don't know what caused me to do it. I think it was one of those things where it was like, and you've definitely sat down and like watched it. I've never done it. I've never done it. Like I have tried my hardest to avoid that game. And I don't know. Something came over me that was like, you know what, Ryan, you're never going to heal unless you watch KU Oregon at Sprint Center as 9.5-point favorites in an Elite Eight game with the National Player of the Year, Josh Jackson. But let me tell you, AB, and I think you saw the text, you saw the tweets. Butterfly effect, that's what you call it when like if something slightly small changes, life's very different, right? If you take away the final minute of that game, I'm convinced Bill Self has he wins that national title. The final minute of the first half, I'm sorry. We go from down, 3 to down 11 at half in a minute in a game where we were trying to run clock for half of that minute, in a game where Oregon turned the ball over in that minute, and then they banked 2 threes. I truly think that 1 minute and 6 seconds in that Oregon game is as bad as it gets. It's the worst minute in Kansas basketball history. I think that's what I'll say.
All right. Well,
you don't want to get into it?
I don't. I thought you were about to spin it as like a positive butterfly effect. Like the first thing that came to my mind was the D Ford offsides for Chiefs Patriots. Because if he's not offsides, the Chiefs go on and win the Super Bowl that year. Bob Sutton's back as the defensive coordinator, and Spags doesn't come in. And if Spags doesn't come in, I'm not convinced that they win 3 more Super Bowls like they have. So, I mean, I thought that's where you were going. Like, well, I don't know.
If we would have turned around and won the next 3 titles, or 2 of the next 3, which I guess we won 1 5 years later. But no, my whole point of watching the game was how did that happen? Like, what happened? And then you just go watch it again, and it's like, well, 1, Oregon played incredibly well, but 2, it's also like it basically came down to that final minute in that half, which is just crazy. But that's March. And to your point about coaches, like, it's such a stupid, fluky tournament. And so the fact that Hurley's done what he's doing, it's crazy that they're not just winning games, they're dominating games.
Yeah, it really is. And I remember last year people were talking how it was one of the most dominant tournament runs ever.
Yeah.
And then they go out and they smash their point differential from last year this year.
I mean, this team beats that UConn team by like 5 points, probably. Like, they're probably like 5-point favorites, aren't they?
Probably, yeah.
maybe more, because they were 6.5 against Purdue, which Purdue's guards. Will they make the tournament next year?
I don't know, dude. It was just so demoralizing. And I don't know about you, but I was heavily rooting for Purdue just because, like, this actually will lead into the next thing I want to talk about. We didn't need to see UConn win another one. And the fact that I tweeted this out, the fact they've only been to 7 Final Fours in school history and they have 6 championships, it makes me sick. Like, it really does.
No,
like,
that stat about they've missed 32% of the last 25 NCAA tournaments, didn't make it. Mm-hmm. And they've won 24% of the last 25 NCAA tournaments. It's so dumb.
It really is.
But the problem is, I think I said this last year after their title. One day UConn's going to win a national title, and they are never going to win another one for 100+ years after one, because at some point, law of averages will come into play. It's what I've always said about KU too. We're going to go on a stretch where we win 2-3 national titles in a row when we're in the actual title game. So I don't know, but what do you say you want to talk about next?
Remind me to get back to KU Final Four stuff after this.
Well, we can do it now if you want.
Well, I want to get to the UConn point first because we're talking about them. Can we? I don't want to say can we. I don't want to control what people talk about. But I will say it's kind of loser behavior to A, care about who's a blue blood, and B, to say that UConn's like not up there in that realm right now. Like, I just think that's just really bizarre to me. And I don't get why people get so worked up over it, because it's like, who fucking cares? Like, it's just a label. Like, and it's people, they don't want to make UConn a blue blood because it's only been the past 30 years or whatever, but they want to include UCLA when they've what was their run in the 60s and 70s, and what have they done since? It's like, just because it's a different time, I don't care that it hadn't gone back that long. It's been basically my whole life that UConn's in a way dominated, and I get they have down years, but anyone with 6 national championships, they're up there, man. They're up in that realm. So when I see people get like so defensive about it on Twitter, it's like, who gives a shit? Like,
I'm very much on the subject of, or like on the side of, I just don't care. It's one of those arguments that drives me insane, because it's like, who defines blue blood? There is no answer. Right. And I kind of like, like if I were a UConn fan, I would just be like, we don't care. We're better than all of them right now. Right. We've had far more success than all of them the last 30 years. And to your point, UCLA, Indiana, as Joe Ireland in the chat just pointed out, like, UConn has now probably sustained success just as long as Indiana did. I don't know. And Alan has a strong take that Duke is not a blue blood. And, we're falling into the trap though. Like, why can't a blue blood be one coach only? Like, I don't know. That's why I just don't even know what a blue blood. When I think blue blood, I just think of teams that have always had a big brand.
Yeah, that's how I see it too. Like, top tier of college basketball is how I always seen it.
And so, like, that's why I really haven't, you're not going to see me arguing passionately that UConn should be considered a blue blood, because they didn't really exist. But I just also think, I don't think blue blood necessarily has to mean like how much success you've had recently. I just think when I think of it, it's those programs that when you see them two playing on a Saturday, you're like, wow. Mm-hmm. And like, I think it's pretty clear who those are. And if you want to throw UConn in, I'm fine with it. If you don't, I'm fine with that. It's just a dumb argument, because at the end of the day, UConn's had it about as good as anyone has in our lifetime, at least.
Yeah. I mean, other than the UCLA run, is this the best 25-year stretch ever?
Yeah, and the UCLA run is like
very different.
Very different. Smaller tournament, I think, right? For some of those.
The regionals were actually regionally based, so they basically Yeah.
Imagine KU playing Allen Fieldhouse. How many titles does? Well, that's probably not how it worked.
No, but they were playing teams like KU would. I mean, I don't know what the regions actually were, but UCLA is probably playing like,
Oh, I see. They're playing like UC
like
Santa
West
Barbara.
Coast.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'd have been having to go through like Wichita State, Oklahoma, like those type of schools, and avoiding
Oregon.
Yeah.
VCU.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We had to play Northern Iowa though.
Yeah, I was going to make that joke, but I already did my Oregon thing, so I'm not going to bring up any other bad losses. But you did say you wanted to talk KU Final Four.
Oh yeah, no, just a quick little note. The last 2 times the Final Four has been in San Antonio, KU's been there. The last 3 times it's been in New Orleans, KU's been there. 3, yeah, maybe 4. Yeah, it's actually 4. But anyways, my point being, next year it's in San Antonio, so we'll be seeing you. We'll be seeing you down there.
Yep. And I can't remember what I saw. What was it? This is bad now that I brought it up. I can't remember, but something about Bill Self the year after, and I think I've kind of said this before, the year after, what is it, a 10-loss season? I don't know. Either way, Bill Self after a year like we just had just is usually pretty damn good. But I guess we are 41 minutes into the show. We can talk about the current Kansas Jayhawks. Not a lot has changed since we last talked a little over a week ago, which I know it's been a dead period, so not a lot's going on anywhere, but still don't know for sure about Furphy. I think latest rumblings seem to be that Furphy's probably going to go pro, but I don't know. I've heard all sorts of different, that's kind of flipped back and forth, but I think it's probably safe to assume we lose him. Is that where you're feeling?
I have no idea. Your thoughts are a lot more backed than mine are.
But I'm just saying, not from like any scoop standpoint, just from like I think kind of have leaned towards the draft is weak. Furphy, if he's a first rounder, should go because this draft is
anymore.
Well, yeah,
he was mocked at 37 the other day by Gavoni, whatever his name is for ESPN.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It is strange to me though. For as much roster turnover as we expected after the season, there hasn't been like any news on KU's roster other than bringing in Kugel and Zeke.
I know.
Like we haven't heard a thing about Hunter. We haven't heard a thing about Furphy. Haven't heard a thing about El Marco. Haven't heard a thing about Clemens. It's just, and I'm sure things are going to happen. The tournament just ended 3 days ago, 2 days ago, whatever. But maybe I'm comparing it too much to other programs and other players that have. It just feels like every hour I get on and someone else is entering the portal. There just hadn't been much going on in Lawrence yet.
Well, I think it's because a lot of these guys want to stay. But I think also Self and the staff, they're kind of sitting there like, well, you can stay unless so-and-so calls us and wants to come play, and then you can make a decision. Like, kind of like the Ernest thing. Not that Self and them wanted Ernest to leave, but I think Ernest wanted to come back to KU. Zuby wanted to come back to KU, and then that happens, and they're both gone like 2 days later. So a lot can change. It just, like you said, we've got Kugel, we've got Mayo. That's now been over. Gosh, Kugel was 10 days ago. Mayo was probably 7, 8. Nothing's happened since. And, we meant to talk about this, which this is good timing. Every preseason rankings I've seen for next year has us top 3, top 5. Some have us 1. Field of 68 have us 1. And the lineups they're listing, and maybe this is just the state of being a Kansas fan right now. The lineups they're listing, I think, would be worse, potentially, than the team. Well, I don't know. Do you think if we stopped right now and rolled out the lineup, the roster we have, is that team worse than the team we just saw? it's hard because with McCullough, it's a whole different story. So I don't know how you judge.
I don't know about worse, but I will say I don't know that it's better. And the fact that we're taking a jump from barely hanging on in the final top 25, the AP poll, to shooting back up into the top 5. Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It doesn't. And maybe it's people falling in love with names that they know, because we're going to have a lot of those. But I don't know, man. I don't feel super confident. Maybe I'm just, and it's not just me. Maybe we're all just a little don't know exactly what Zeke is going to be, and the national perspective views him as a bigger difference maker than maybe we have allowed ourselves to feel about him. And I feel like some people probably have. But I also think that with the Timberlake thing and just past transfers and recruits coming in, that we might be a little hesitant on this guy coming in and being a top 2 or 3 option on this roster and really putting us over the top.
Yeah, because that's what scares me the most about, if we roll out DeJuan, Zeke, Kugel, KJ, Hunter, it's like, so Hunter's the go-to guy, of course, but Kevin McCullough was the second option behind Hunter, and now that option is Zeke Mayo, a guy from South Dakota State. Like that, that cannot be where this ends up. And I don't think that's where it's going to end up. I think it would take a pretty big disaster if we don't find. But I guess the argument could also be made, we might get another guy, but is it going to be better than a Zeke Mayo? I don't know. I'm getting impatient. I need more news quickly.
I know. It does feel like it's been the longest, 2.5 weeks ever since the season ended.
Wasn't last year like we were in the middle of like Dickinson? His was like a drawn out recruitment, right? Like multiple visits over a couple weeks. And we just haven't really had that. The 2 guys we were after early committed quickly, and then it's just been nothing, which I get. We're just kind of in a dead period. But I don't know. It's hilarious, though, seeing like preseason number 1, Kansas. But I have said Bill Self with a lot of returners is dangerous. And if Furphy returns, I know we've had this, we're not going to argue about this tonight, but like if Furphy returns and you do roll out KJ and Hunter, and I know that's not ideal, but like Zeke, Furphy, DeJuan, KJ, Hunter is a really good team. It just, can they figure it out with KJ and Hunter together? I don't know. We'd see. But it's still, on paper, it's a stacked team.
You would think so. Well, I think we talked about this before we got on. ESPN had us number 3 without Hunter coming back. So it's like, what are we doing?
Which that's just like, I don't even, oh my God.
Well, that's the Blue Blood brand just putting us up there, I got to think.
And just like not realizing that McDonald's All-Americans don't just come in and play 30 minutes a game for Bill Self. Because, that lineup you said was DeJuan, Mayo, Kugel, KJ, and Flory, and they had us ranked as preseason number 3 team. And if that's our starting lineup going into next year, we might Calipari Bill Self. Like, this fan base may turn. I'm just kidding. We wouldn't. But that'd be really bad if that was our starting lineup next year.
I don't want to say what I was going to say.
Say it.
No.
This is probably getting booted off YouTube anyways because we used the intro.
Yeah, that's true. No, I'm good. We'll pass.
Wow. AB getting a little soft.
Well,
was it a self take?
No.
Was it? Oh, you think they'd be better? You think they'd be better with Flory?
No, it wasn't that either. No. I'll tell you when we get off.
Okay.
It's nothing serious. It's just I don't want to start riling people up.
Okay. Let's see. Chat. Anything you want us to touch on? I can't remember if we had any of the topics we talked about. Mo Lester Jr. wants
to
pay store $1 million. I don't think that's off the table yet.
What was his name?
Mo Lester Jr.
Sure. Say it again, baby.
Mo Lester Jr. Legend. Love it.
No, wasn't that either.
Staying away from that one.
I don't want to talk about that one. Yeah. Football?
Didn't you have some takes you wanted to rattle off?
I don't know. It's nothing too serious. It's just the fact that I'm already annoyed with the discourse between a certain conference foe on Twitter right now, and it's April 10th. We've got months until football season starts, and I can just tell it's going to be exhausting. Could talk Masters.
Yes, that Alan says he has questions. Do we possibly let Alan just start letting it fly in the chat?
Alan has given us more content than anyone not on the pod has ever given us, just based on his questions when we do Q&A. So I'm in.
Let's go. Fire away, Alan. Go. Hurry.
Start firing.
We'll start with El Man Dude. No, I do not think Tiger's making the cut, unfortunately, which will snap a really long streak, I believe. Alan, first question. Ooh. What would hurt more if this was their last season? Leipold to MSU or self-retiring?
30 seconds, I'm out. Alan looks hot in that picture. Holy shit, dude.
What, saying he doesn't always?
No, he does. He just looks a little more hair's a little spikier. He just looks ready to go. So he's asking if self-retires or Leipold goes to Michigan State.
Yeah, I don't get why the Michigan State. That's random. Is that just a random school? But self-retiring to me is always going to be. I mean, that's just I don't remember if I told you this, but on April Fools, I saw the tweet that somebody put out that Self was retiring or whatever. And I knew within 2 seconds of reading it that it was an April Fool's joke.
Sure.
But still, my body like tensed up like I was in a high-stress situation. Like, I'm not even kidding. The thought of reading Bill Self-retiring was a horrifying moment for me. For the 1 second that I actually forgot it was April Fool's. And then I sat there and was like, this is bad. I need to mentally start preparing myself for the day Self retires. So I'm going to say self-retiring because if you missed the beginning of the pod, coaching searches aren't the most smooth thing right now. No. Nobody's really made a massive, great hire here in the last few years. So I'll say that.
But I do think there's part of it that even with the weird coach, I mean, you take Villanova out of this, obviously. Carolina's been fine. Duke's been fine. I think Kentucky's going to be fine. I think KU would be fine. I really do. I don't know what fine would be. I don't know who the guy would be, but I think at the end of the day, KU basketball will be okay. And whenever this is going to happen, like I don't think Bill Self is an expiration date on Kansas basketball.
I don't think so either, but I do think you have to be very careful of not turning into Indiana.
Right, and that's always going to be a fear. But for KU football, it's fearing irrelevance again and being a doormat.
Yeah, but
like,
see,
and I get it.
Where you can go both ways. Like, I've lived life as KU being as irrelevant as one they can possibly be. Like, it can never get worse in my mind for KU football. KU basketball becoming Indiana would be truly devastating to us.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting question. Alan always brings the heat. Let's go, Alan. Rapid fire.
Backstory on how we met, huh? We should do a whole series on that. How I Met Your Mother.
What injury did somebody say that? Or
yeah, John Doe.
How you three meet? I don't even remember where I met you, AB.
I think we knew of each other based off of mutual friends in college and Twitter.com. And then you and Braden started talking about it, and I was like, yo, you guys been talking about this for like 2 or 3 months. Let's get this baby moving. And,
you came up to me at, I think, Power and Light. Right?
Yeah, I definitely saw you there. But I think we had talked a little bit before. Maybe not. Maybe I'm misremembering.
Maybe.
But yeah, it was for that KU game they always play at Sprint Center in like mid-December.
Oh,
and Cole and I were there, and you and Bryce were there, and you guys came and sat with us, and we kind of just like chopped it up and talked about it.
And you were like, you actually knew how to produce a pod, which was very important. Well, you said enough to where I was like, absolutely, sign me up for this guy.
I knew enough how we could get it published and basically I knew enough to get it so that there was a product to put out there, not just you guys talking and not knowing what to do.
Alan dropped a banger of a question here. What injury hurt the respective team's ceiling more, McCullough or Jalen Daniels? Right off the bat, you want to say Jalen Daniels, but then you think about how good Jason Bean was. I think it's definitely McCullough.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty
ceiling's
stark different. Yeah, for sure. I probably agree. I do think maybe we don't lose some of the games we did with that Bean started, but I also think Bean may have won us games that we wouldn't have won with Daniels. And like people do forget the TCU game when JD got hurt last year. JD wasn't very good at all. Yeah. And then Bean comes in and all of a sudden it's a shootout. Like I think there's a little bit of a balance there. But like Bean also had his own injury issues that cost us a game or two. So
yeah, I think McCullough, and it's not even all about McCullough versus Jalen Daniels. It's the team that was surrounding McCullough already had such small room for error that then you lose your second best player, or at the time he got hurt, maybe your best player. Like that team was just so toast once he wasn't healthy. So, let's see. So now Alan's just going down the schedule. Do we beat K-State?
Yes, but I don't think we beat Texas.
Yeah,
I mean, dude, we I hate to say coulda, shoulda, woulda. It's hard to like watch that K-State game last year and not think we shouldn't have won, and that was with Cole Ballard playing. And I don't want to get into this because it's super sad and it's going to trigger me for the rest of the night. But I think with Bean or JD, that's Jayhawk W.
I can't. I'll never get the Rich Miller pick six out of my head. I cannot believe that ball was not caught. Wow. I can't believe it. All right, moving on. When it's all said and done, from Alan again, when it's all said and done, who will have had a more impactful transfer career at KU for their sport? Hunter Dickinson or Jason Bean?
Yeah, this is fun. I almost take that question as most memorable. Is that a fair way to do it? Like in 20 years, who are we going to remember more?
Yeah, I mean, Hunter Dickinson's it's Bean as of now, but like a Final Four will solve that.
Sure. A lot will change next year. It's hard when one guy's not done and one guy is, but boy.
Yeah. But as of now, like it's weird because in the moment we remember that Jalen Daniels was playing all those games before Bean came in. But if Jalen Daniels just goes on to play 2 more years at Kansas, in 10, 15 years, what we're going to think about is Jason Bean started it, and then Daniels came, like Daniels was the guy after Bean. But I don't know. As of now, Jason Bean greater than signed Hunter Dickinson. Wow. Who would have saw that coming?
Not me.
North Texas product. AB food talk to finish off this pod. You have any big food takes lately?
No, not particularly. Not off the top of my head. I'm sure if there was like a direct question about something, I could fire.
Any bomb pops in the house right now?
No, but we're getting close to bomb pop season. Wow. I mean, we're probably, if you didn't see this weekend, I know you're on Scottsdale, it'll be even warmer. It's supposed to be like 85, 90 degrees in Kansas City this weekend.
Wow.
So it might be bomb pop season.
That is prime bomb pop season.
Oh, I do have a food take, actually. This one got a lot of play during March Madness. The Wendy's orange dreamsicle frosty. I was so excited to try it. It's just there's not enough orange, man. There's not enough orange flavor in there. I was severely disappointed with it. I love a dreamsicle. It's a top.
You do.
It's a top 3 to 5 popsicle flavor for me, and it just wasn't. It didn't pop enough. It was almost like vanilla with a hint of orange when I want orange with a hint of vanilla.
You give the hard-hitting takes. Really, really is good.
Yeah. Well,
what was the Big 12 creamsicle product that we talked about from the Big 12 tournament? Didn't the team do that?
Someone did. Yeah, I can't remember.
And you talked about how you love to like make some alcoholic beverage, Fanta and
Fanta and vanilla brunettes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the Orange McFlurry from McDonald's back in like the early 2000s, mid 2000s? No. See, that's what I was thinking of when I saw Dreamsicle Frosty. Was like just punch you in the mouth with some orange, and it just wasn't that. Raisin Canes, love Raisin Canes.
Raisin Canes is good. John Doe asks, most underrated fast food chains. Underrated. Maybe that was Mike answering, saying Raisin Canes. I don't know if I'd call Raisin Canes underrated. I feel like it's pretty universally loved, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. Can I say McDonald's is underrated?
I don't know that.
Well, right, because everyone thinks McDonald's. No one, when they're talking about going to get a fast food meal, and you're like, I'm going to Cane's. Cane's sounds fucking fire. Or I'm going to get, name your underrated fast food place. No one's ever mentioned McDonald's in that. McDonald's, I mean,
it's really
be honest. It's consistent. Their soda's the best out of everyone, which is big for me. It's so good, but no one talks. It's just like almost like they've reached such a high bar of expectations that no one wants to admit how good it is.
McDonald's is standard, but their service blows. I mean, hey, Raising Cane's elite service. But yeah, you're right though. The thing about McDonald's,
chicken, which combo are you picking?
Yeah, I mean, the problem with McDonald's is, and I think it's what you were alluding to, is like if I walk in here with a bag of McDonald's on this TV, comments are like, "Oh, fat boy got McDonald's. How gross." If I walk in with Raising Cane's, which is just as unhealthy,
if not more.
Yeah, everyone's like, "Oh, Raising Cane's, baby." So yeah, I mean that's an interesting take. John Doe also said Long John Silver's.
No,
that you know what? You'd be lying if you said the fish, the crispy fish at Long John. I haven't had it in probably 15 years, but as a kid, that was elite.
I'm not a seafood guy, so I'm kind of just out from the jump on them.
But Long John, at least the ones that I've been to, just disgusting places to step foot into.
Which you almost have to respect with fast food places, though, right?
That don't clean?
No, see, if you're going to eat some of that, you kind of want to feel a little bit grimy all around, though.
Yeah, but if I'm going to go to a place that's gross and messy, I need it to be like a guy that's in the back cooking up his own recipes. Like, there's enough money for Long John Silver's to keep their places clean. If the guy that owns the Mexican restaurant or the Italian joint that's cooking up his old family recipe wants to leave his place a little dirty, I can live with that because he's grinding. He's putting food on the table for his family, literally. But no, I don't want to walk into a Long John Silver's and have it be disgusting all the way around. Jersey Mike's, I see. I just had Jersey Mike's for the first time in a long time on Saturday, actually.
I got some upsetting news while we're on the fast casual someplace. Got a Snapchat from my guy Cole Peterson yesterday. For those Overland Park, Kansas folk, rest in peace to Penn Station East Coast subs on 135th and Antioch. They're closing down very soon. I think today, honestly, might have been their last day. Great sandwich. They serve fries with their like cold cut sandwiches. It's just a really good spot. Now it's expensive as shit. It's like a once every year or two kind of place, but really, 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 really good sandwich.
I can see why they failed. They're once or twice a year type. How expensive are these sandwiches?
Well, everywhere is now, I guess. I haven't been in shit. It's been a couple years probably, but
really niche topic here for all my Topekans that are watching. But obviously Taco Villa is the GOAT, but a sleeper, a new one that's come aboard, Jorge's. Go check out Jorge's. You want to talk about a guy running the show. I mean, he plays the ukulele while you eat. He sings happy birthday to you, even if it's not your birthday. Sings the SpongeBob theme song. Jorge is the man. And so that's on the come up in Topeka. So for Mexican.
I'll try it next time.
All 7 Topeka viewers we have here
tonight. Ponchos for fast food, Mexican and Olathe. Or not Olathe. I said
never
Olathe,
had ponchos earlier than 2 a.m.
Yeah, well, it's a good spot. This is where I get the majority of my ponchos. When I've got a Saturday, I'm working from like 6:30 a.m. to like 10 a.m. and I'm coming home from my last pool, and it's like it's kind of like that weird gray area of I don't want to go home and make breakfast at 10:30. I'm kind of worn out. I woke up early, worked a little bit. It's getting hot. So I go to Ponchos. Their breakfast burritos are top notch, and they're cheap and they're big, and it's that I get breakfast way more often at Ponchos than I'll get anything else.
Actually, now that you say that, I've never had the breakfast burrito at Ponchos, but I've been at a golf tournament where they brought in the poncho. I love this question.
I went to Chipotle, got a chicken bowl, white rice, black beans, pico, medium salsa, sour cream, corn, cheese. It's great.
Wow. Wait, chicken, white rice. I go no beans.
Okay.
Pico.
The medium salsa, like the green.
I've been, if I'm feeling a little crazy, I'll throw it on there. I got to go corn. Hot sauce on the side because you can never trust their hot sauce to be consistent. Sometimes it is out of this world hot. Other times it's perfect. And then cheese, lots of lettuce. Yeah, it's great.
So I've got a lettuce take for Chipotle. I
have one too.
I can't do it.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. The lettuce they use for their salads, I don't like as much as the lettuce they just put on top of your bowl.
It's different.
There's a take. I think it's different. They have like more fancy salad for the salads.
I've never gotten as you can tell by my figure, I'm not a salad at Chipotle kind of guy. But I didn't know they switched it up and used different products.
It may not be always, but I've definitely had that where I get the salad and it's like, well, I just wanted the simple iceberg lettuce or whatever you call that lettuce. I just love John Doe's question was just so direct. AB, what did you have for dinner?
My issue with Chipotle lettuce is that I don't like warm lettuce in general. So like if it's getting mixed in with everything else, I feel like it loses its texture a little bit, and it just I don't know. It's like pickles. Like I'll eat a cold pickle, but you put a warm pickle on a burger, I'm like, no, thank you. PU.
I kind of like a warm. I mean, I like it cold, but I kind of like a warm pickle.
Do you think this is a weird take? At Chick-fil-A, I get pickles on my sandwich and take them off, but I always get them with pickles so that there's a little bit of pickle juice and flavor on the bun.
Not weird. I'm not judging. I think it'd probably just be good with the pickles. I think you should give it a try.
I have. I mean, half the time I forget to take them off and I just bite into it and it's just like, whoa, but I don't know.
What about this? This is something that me and Hannah actually debate quite often. I love Pizza Hut. Listen, call it trash, call it chain, call it, but I think Pizza Hut, especially the thin pizza from Pizza Hut, I think is elite. And it's like we never get it. It's like what I get if she's gone for a weekend or something. It's like that's how sad it is. That's so depressing. That's so depressing because it's like, oh, getting Pizza Hut tonight, like because that's the only thing that universally is not the right word, but like we will never agree on. She refuses to eat it.
I don't have issues with the taste there. It's more of how it makes me feel. I get tummy aches way more often at Pizza Hut than I will at any of the other pizza chains.
Interesting.
So, but on your point of thin crust chains, Domino's thin crust pizza is the best in the game.
Slept on. Actually, I don't even know if it's slept on. It was slept on, and now I think it's pretty widely known. I mean, all-time move by them to just be like, our pizza sucks, we're changing it. And it worked.
Sure did.
Yeah. So congrats to them. It's kind of like Dan Hurley just switching his entire offense. Oh, let's see. Didn't get a lot of I was hoping for a resounding Pizza Hut support in the chat. Didn't get a lot of that. What about does Overland Park have Glory Days?
They do have one now. It's actually not far from my place. It's on like Shawnee Mission Parkway in Flum. It's right by Johnny's. I haven't. The only time I had it was it after the Final Four at your place or a football game at your place or something?
Yes,
it's legit.
It's
also gave me a tummy ache, but it tastes really good.
Yeah. I mean, it's you said once or twice a year for that sandwich place. Mm-hmm. Glory Days is like, I'm not eating it unless something very good has happened in my life. Whether it's Final Four, whether it's a holiday or like a fun weekend with a bunch of people. But the baked potato pizza, as our guy Alan, who put it on, like Alan used to work at Glory Days, I believe. Is that right, Alan, or was that Tanner? I might be wrong on that. No, I don't. I actually don't think Alan worked at Glory Days, but he loved the baked potato pizza. Baked potato pizza's elite, maybe my favorite pizza ever, but also they're just regular pizzas really good. They do the thing where they put the meat under the cheese. Innovative.
That's big. That's big.
Yeah.
He did not
work. He worked at Outback Steakhouse.
Talk about a good French onion.
Whew. And Sheridan's.
Oh, I might be thinking of Longhorn's French onion.
Longhorn's good too.
I love French. Do you like French onion soup? You don't come off as an onion guy.
No, I like onions.
Okay, good.
What's the worst job each of you have had?
I did so this actually happened during the KU Oregon game. That's when I was working this, so it really made me extra depressed going in that Monday. I was doing like tech support / accounting, like accountant support, and I have no accounting background, but it was tech support for QuickBooks, like small businesses, people running their shit. And I was good at it. It was just one of those like first jobs you get out of school.
That's what I saw on your resume. It's why I hired you to be the producer of this pod.
Yeah.
IT, baby.
I was like, I was pretty good. I just hated it so much. And I hated being on the phones for 8 to 10 hours at a time. And there was no like leeway. You're always being watched over your shoulder by your bosses, making sure you're on the clock. You don't make the calls. The calls come in. You have 2 minutes after each call to write your notes. The next one comes in. There's always a queue. Like there's no downtime. And the worst part about it was during our training. We had a 1-month training class that we took. I blew everyone else out of the water. And the reward for this was you got to pick your schedule. So I'm like, okay, cool. There was one shift that was Monday to Friday, 8 to 4. One person got that shift. Wow. I'm looking at the schedule and I'm like, holy shit, there's only one of them. And I just wrote my name down like one line below that on accident without realizing it. And I get my schedule the next week and I'm working Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And this is when I had a girlfriend that lived in Manhattan, Kansas, that I'd go to Manhattan every, couple weeks or couple weekends. And it really, really, really was a downside because I couldn't change it. It was like, once you put your name down, someone else already took the Monday through Friday. So you passed the paper around. I had no way of getting out of it. I had to do that. It was just the worst. So
how did you find out that you wrote the wrong thing down? Like I would have been rioting, being like, wait, no, I chose the good schedule.
Trust me, Ryan, I did.
And they were like, no.
No, they showed me the paper and they were right.
Wow.
They were right.
You probably should have been fired at that point because if you can't write on the correct line, how are you going to help you do IT?
Well, but the other part that sucked is these people are calling in for tech support and you get on and you start sharing your screen and it's not tech questions. It is accounting questions and how do I balance my books and why is this showing? Like, I was like, I don't know, dude. Like, I really don't. But,
yeah, that's any job that involves like phones. I don't know. I mean, if you had to ask me, my worst job ever is probably, it wasn't the actual job. It's what happened at the job. I was working at a camp as a golf instructor one summer and given kids lessons a little bit, and one of the kids hit the other kid in the face with a club on accident on my watch.
Sure.
Not great. Not a good feeling.
Yeah.
So that scarred me for life. Quickly knew that I should not be supervising large groups of kids swinging metal sticks.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
The idea of it sounds good, though.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
That I saw someone say they're in a call center now. It's not my lifestyle, man. I can't be stuck in an office for 8 to 10 hours a day. And that's why I work swimming pools now. I just like to be out on my own and do my own shit, you know?
Yeah. It's I couldn't do what you do. That's for sure.
I'm not saying it's for everybody, but I just love the idea of waking up on a Thursday morning and throwing on my slides and throwing on my, V-neck white undershirt and some basketball shorts and throwing my AirPods in and just going to work for 8 hours and being outside and sweating my ass off and being by myself with as many podcasts as I could possibly listen to. It is ASMR almost for me. It really is. Now, there are days that suck, I'm not going to lie, but it's also one of those things like I don't have any nights where I go to bed not wanting to go to work tomorrow. And that's where everyone should be, right?
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, John Doe. Come on, baby. Pin this mofo.
Pin this mofo. All right. I think that's all I got. I mean, unless you got any more takes you want to fire off.
Ryan, there was literally so little to talk about today that we titled this episode Offseason Season. And we've gone an hour and 17 minutes seamlessly just talking about anything and everything. So, no, I don't have anything that comes to mind, but I'm sure something would come to mind if we wanted to. But I'm cool to end it here.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you to those of you following along. It lasted this entire time. John Doe, Philip Guy, Joe Ireland, all of you in there. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe. Yes, get us to 1,000 subscribers. Tell your friends, tell your wives, tell everybody. We're almost to 1,000. We need to get there. So thank you. We will be back next week, and rock chalk.